All right, we are back. This is Made for Philly, presented by Godzilla Media. I'm Bryce Zelinsky alongside Matt Minton. We took a little bit of a week off. I was out of town, and our schedules didn't align to do a pod after the Cowboys game. I think that was for the better anyways, because it would have just depressed us even more. However, it's not exactly going to be a rosy episode this week either, as the Birds fell to the Kansas City Chiefs and go to 1-3 on the season. We'll touch on the Phillies and their disappointing, once again, end to another season that was full of promise, only for it to be taken away from all of us in the final week, as usual. But let's touch on the Birds, Matt. We'll start with this game in Kansas City. I was there. I was at the game this weekend. It was a great atmosphere. The Link was loud. The Link was doing everything it could to get this team into it. The offense looked good. I mean, they put up 30 points. Some of it, I get, was in garbage time. But after the clunker in Dallas, you wanted to see this team at least look better in some shape or form. The offensive side of the ball was one of the areas that this team did look better. Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, probably had his best game as an Eagle, going toe-to-toe for about 3.5 quarters with Patrick Mahomes before eventually they just couldn't keep up with them anymore. However, the big concern is the defensive side of the ball. But we'll start, Matt, with you, with your immediate reaction to the Birds falling to 1-3.
So I guess we'll start with some of the positives. Granted, for the most part, Jalen Hurts did look very promising, but there were a couple of throws he missed that you want to see a franchise quarterback make. Devontae Smith showed flashes of being a number one receiver. I mean, first 100-yard game, he looked great. So this offense has potential. Obviously, you would like to see them give the ball to Miles Sanders a little bit more than 9
Yeah,
times
what the hell is
games.
up with this?
I don't know
what the hell
what
is
he's
up
done.
with this?
I don't know what he's done to whether it's Sirianni, to Lurie, or Howie, to just not get carries. I mean, the dude averages, again, like I've said so many times, he averaged 5 yards a touch over his first 2 seasons. He should be the focal point of your offense. And Jalen Hurts, who hasn't even started a full half of a season yet, he should not be dropping back 40 to 50 times in a game, especially against the Kansas City defense that was ranked, I think, second to last in run yards allowed and run per average.
And your quarterback shouldn't be your team's leading rusher either.
Absolutely not. No, unless he's Lamar Jackson.
Or unless he's Lamar Jackson. And that's just it. Like, that's not the brand of football that wins you a Super Bowl when you're like, it's nice, a flash in the pan. Maybe your quarterback wins you or steals you a game with his legs, but you need a pocket passer. And when Jalen Hurts, I get it. The RPO is heavy on this offense. That's what Sirianni's bringing. But like under our impression, we talked about this all preseason, like our understanding with Sirianni, and he at least emphasized this in the preseason. Clearly, it's not a thing. First of all, we didn't get to talk about running the ball 3 times against Dallas. That's just plain and simply unacceptable. Again, didn't run it enough against Kansas City. The best way to keep the Chiefs offense from putting up a lot of points in bunches is to keep them off the field, and that's controlling time of possession with your run game, and you simply didn't do it. But Sirianni comes from an offense with the Colts that we were expecting to emphasize more on the run, because this is what Doug Peterson didn't do, was emphasize the run. So you bring in Sirianni from the Colts, who clearly emphasized the run, rotated the running backs, this and that, yada, yada, yada. Miles Sanders, 9 touches in the first 2 games. Kenneth Gainwell, like, look, I like Gainwell a lot. I think he's a good compliment, but you have Miles Sanders, who could clearly has the talent to be a top 10 back. I think, in my opinion, is a top 10 back in this league. And you're just simply not giving him the ball. He is a game changer. And when you do give him the ball in his hands, this offense could take it to a whole other level. Teams are not honoring the running game for the Eagles outside of what Hurts can do. And it's clearly showing after a while, they're predictable.
Yeah, I think it was an interview I saw from one of the Chargers coaches where he said, in the game of football, you need to have a good run game to establish the physical element, make the defense get on and realize that they have to come up and make plays and make tackles. If you're just dropping back every play, you're letting this defense just sit back and practically coast, because they're taking away essentially half of the game of offense. And especially when you even have guys like Jordan Howard on your practice squad who can serve as your between the tackles bruiser, let Miles Sanders be your change of pace. You know, I don't understand why Kenny Gainwell, look, I like him. He's shown a lot of good potential, but I don't understand why a guy who's in his 3rd game should be essentially the running back 1 getting 7 carries over Miles Sanders, who has put up 1,000-yard seasons, I think, the back-to-back years.
Yeah, his first 2 seasons in the league, he's put up 1,000 yards. And this is a guy that, I mean, has shown to be able to carry a full workload, be a 3-down back in this league, can excel in the passing game as well. And like you said, I mean, Jordan Howard is on the practice squad. When we've seen this team succeed, and this goes back to Doug Peterson, what was the big reason why the Eagles had so much success that Super Bowl year? They were running the ball well with Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount, Darren Sproles until he got hurt. They were able to run the ball. And that's just, to me, especially in an RPO-centric offense, is something that's so critical because that will keep the linebackers back. That will keep the secondary on its toes. Is Jalen keeping it? Is Miles Sanders getting the ball? Are they going to throw it? It's just an added layer that Nick Foles was able to excel with. Jalen certainly has the ability to excel with, but we haven't seen enough of it. And I get that maybe in Sirianni's head, and this is part of being a rookie head coach, maybe in Sirianni's head the past 2 weeks, well, I'm playing against the Cowboys. They have an explosive offense. I need to keep up with them. Well, we're playing the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. We need to keep up with them. Throw the football. I said it earlier in the show, but sometimes your best defense is keeping the offense off the field with that run game. And I get it. Like, this was tough. This was a tough week for the Eagles offensively because you had 4 of your 5 starters out on the offensive line. Lane Johnson was hour before. I'm sitting in my seat hour before Lane Johnson inactive for personal reasons. Excuse me? But the offensive line, believe it or not, actually played pretty well. The Eagles were able to do, for the most part, between the 20s, what they wanted to do against this Chiefs defense. Play calling really hurt Sirianni again in the red zone. He got Hurts into a rhythm, gave him a chance to make plays. Hurts looked good, spread the ball around, accurate, showed good pocket awareness. However, first and goal once again from the 9. We don't run the ball once. Mm-hmm. It's just so maddening to watch this team because we've seen glimpses, right? We've seen glimpses of what this team could be, and we knew this was going to be a rebuilding year. However, we also said that this team has the talent to surprise people. I still believe that. And at 1-3, I'm not saying, with 14 games left that this season is over. It's not. But with the schedule coming up and quickly Dallas pulling away, like something has to click here. And would I be surprised if it doesn't? No, this is a young team that's rebuilding. I get that. But we're starting to see some things in some areas that's good. However, we've seen regression in other places like the defense. So, we have the good and then there's more bad. And then to pile onto that, this team is so undisciplined, half the time they're beating themselves. It doesn't matter what the Chiefs or Cowboys do. 44 penalties in the first 4 weeks. That's a franchise record. That's on pace for an NFL record as well. It's just not good enough. And when you have a head coach that sits on the podium and expects discipline and preaches discipline from his team each and every week, this is a team like, I'm sick of hearing the talk. I'm sick of hearing Sirianni taking accountability. I'm sick of hearing Hurts taking accountability. I'm sick of hearing Fletcher Cox sit there and say, I got to be better. I don't really know my role of the defense. You're the leader of this fucking football team. Do something. I'm sick of hearing the talk and not seeing the walk. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it feels like we've been hearing a lot of talk and no walk for the last, 2-3 years now. And you look at their upcoming schedule and the teams they're playing. I believe
it's not good.
It's not good. The next 2 games are what? Oakland. Who are our next 2 games after?
They have Carolina this week, and we'll get to that. Then they have Vegas, and then they have Tampa.
That's 3 teams that have more wins than they do, and very dangerous teams. So you need to figure this out because you do not. It's very possible they could start this season 1-6, and it's possible they don't. But,
and then we have a different conversation, Matt, right? Like, so
which one?
Right. So if you start 1-6, is Ertz is probably gone, right? Like if you're 1-6, Ertz is probably gone. It's time to explore the options for Fletcher Cox because clearly he's a shell of himself, and I'm kind of over the no stats and not being a leader of this defense when clearly you lose Brandon Graham. Somebody needs to step up. Fletcher Cox, I'm looking at you, and you're not doing jack shit. So it might be time to move him while you can. Rodney McLeod, as much as I like him, might be time to shop him. Derek Barnett, if you're really frustrated with him, don't see him as part of the future, maybe shop him too. This is a team that, like, if it gets to that point, and I hope it doesn't, we'll break down this Carolina game in a bit. I'm not scared of Vegas that much. I hope it doesn't get to the point of 1-6. It's possible. But that's a conversation I'm not really looking forward to having, but it's becoming a realistic conversation that we may have to have here at the end of the month.
Definitely not a conversation you want to have, but with the way what we've seen from this team right now, it's something in the back of your head you got to think about. I mean, because like you said with Fletcher Cox, these guys aren't exactly getting any younger and better. And, the stats is like Javon Hargrave's probably been the best defensive player so far to start the season.
He's been an MVP.
He
has been an MVP of this team. Absolutely.
Probably. Derek Barnett, I mean, it sucks because I did watch him get drafted, so he's always had a special place in my heart. When you look at all the penalties he committed, remember that audible of Nick Sirianni in sideline, it's always bleeping him. So that's not something you want to see from a guy who's in year 5. You don't see many guys in year 2 or 3 make that kind of mistake. And Josh Sweat, you want to see him. He got a sack last week, so it's nice to see him start to earn that contract, which kind of, in my opinion, still came a little bit out of nowhere. But you want to see this defense start going out and getting what they're worth.
And that's just it. Like, we were so excited about the pieces of this defense, thinking that, and we saw it against Atlanta, and really we saw it against San Francisco too. Like, the first 2 weeks, this was a defense that was kind of keeping the Eagles into things and giving us hope that this was going to be a defense, even though they lost Brandon Graham, that was going to at least keep this team in games. But clearly, this has turned for the worst real quick. Jonathan Gannon hasn't really been able to adjust like we were hoping to, but this is also kind of an over the years. This was kind of pushing, things down the road. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it type deal. This just didn't happen overnight with this defense. They have drafted poorly on the defensive side of the ball, and that starts with Howie Roseman for over a decade. And they're very far from being a good defense right now, which sucks to say, but it's true. It's a new staff, new players, but they have maybe 2 impact players right now, Matt. Javon Hargrave, like you said, and Josh Sweat has been pretty good. Darius Slay has been non-existent. And let me start with this. Darius Slay, there's a lot of things that you need to clean up, and you are considered one of the leaders on this defense. How about not tweeting at a Cowboys corner 30 minutes after you just gave up 40 points for the second consecutive week, congratulating him? Oh, by the way, he's a Dallas Cowboy on a good week. Maybe not do that. Maybe just send him a text. Maybe not publicly put on Twitter that you're congratulating a Dallas Cowboy 30 minutes after you gave up another 40-point blowout. But I digress. They're not only going to give up 40 points they're not going to give up 40 points every week. That's just simply impossible. God, if they do, I'm having flashbacks of Billy Davis at that point. But until this team finds a way to draft young defensive talent, this isn't going to be a good defense. It's just simply not. When you only have 2 impact players, the veterans you bring in, it kind of seems like they expect more just to be given to them at this point, maybe because they're veterans. They want to be on a competitive team. The expectation here for so many years was this was a competitive team. So you have Fletcher Cox, who wants to be on a competitive team. Darius Slay came in to compete. Well, he got traded here, but expects to compete. Nelson came to Philly because he expects to compete. Nelson hasn't been that great. He hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been great. This is a defense that doesn't really have that good combination of talent. Like, you either have young players that, not many, that will be here for a good long while and you can build around, and then you have a bunch of veteran players that you could see getting shipped out if this keeps going downhill quickly, and all of a sudden we're talking about this defense even looking worse ridden without talent by the end of the month when the trade deadline comes around and this team's 1-6, 1-7.
Definitely not what you want to see. And another thing I'll just call out that we've seen the last couple of years is this defense is just inability to get turnovers.
None. I mean, they got one against Mahomes, but they couldn't capitalize on it.
Yeah, they couldn't capitalize off of it. When you just don't have that ability to create momentum for your offense, it's not going to work. Like, someone has to step up and make those big plays outside of a sack or a tackle for a loss. Someone's got to make that strip sack or get the fumble recovery or get a pick that we just have not seen from them. It just seems like they have no energy on the defense. It seems like they're just lining up and executing their plays.
Yeah, this is something that Jonathan Gannon needs to correct. Like, I still believe in my heart that this team can figure it out. But with that being said, this is only the fourth time in the franchise's 89-year history that the Eagles have allowed 40 points in consecutive games. It happened back in 1943, happened in 1966, and happened in 2015 with Chip Kelly and Billy Davis, the infamous Buccaneers-Lions back-to-back series, which was just so fun to watch. This was only the fourth time they've ever given up 40 at the link, and that's bad. I get it. It was Mahomes and this Chiefs offense, but they have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of work to do, especially on the offensive side of the ball, but I do want to talk about some positives. Like, I mean, it's not all doom and gloom. Yes, this is a 1-3 football team with a lot of things to fix. And we talked about Jalen Hurts, and I have not been Hurts' biggest supporter, but I will say this about Hurts. I believe he's coming off his best game as an Eagle. We're past having a conversation about whether or not Hurts is equipped to be a successful starting caliber quarterback in the NFL. It's now at the point, is he a franchise quarterback? We've seen the spurts. We've seen the bad. Obviously, we've seen the bad. But this, if anything, this year, and we all knew this, right? I mean, as of now, if the draft was tomorrow, the Eagles have 3 top 10 picks. So they could do a lot of damage. But they need to find out if Jalen Hurts is the franchise guy. His performance against the Chiefs, if he can build on that and continue on this year playing like that, he is on a historic pace after his first 8 starts, Matt. And I want to pull up these stats. He's also having a better year statistically than Carson. He almost put up 400 passing yards against the Chiefs without tossing a turnover. McNabb accomplished that feat only twice, along with Michael Vick. He also has the most total yards through first 8 quarterback starts in NFL history. Only Cam Newton has more with 2,603. Jalen has 2,584. Herbert and Mahomes is behind him. And over that time period, Hurts has accounted for 12 total touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 2,086 passing yards, 498 rushing yards. Those are impressive stats. Granted, not the best teams around him, but if you're Howie Roseman looking and evaluating this team, knowing that you're going to have to draft capital, assuming Carson stays healthy, assuming the Dolphins continue their downward spiral, knowing what's coming in the NFL draft, having all this capital, Jalen Hurts proving this year that he could be a franchise quarterback could go a long way in making this team a hell of a lot better, knowing that you have your franchise quarterback and you could take those top 3. I don't think all 3 of them are going to end up being top 10 picks, maybe 2 of them. But knowing you have all that draft capital that you could address to other positions. I mean, we just talked about how poorly the defense has been over the past decade draft-wise. Some of the inefficiencies on offense, considering the offensive line is already banged up and 4 or 5 starters are out by week 4. But there's other places that, Howie and Sirianni can sit there and address, knowing that Jalen Hurts is the guy.
Yeah, so, I mean, I hate to think towards the draft this early, but when you look at the way this season started, it's hard to not look at it, and the opportunity's there. So you're hoping that Wentz continues playing the snaps and hope that the Colts keep losing games because, like I said, the quarterback draft class isn't exactly, beautiful this upcoming year. So now you have to start looking at also if Hurts doesn't work out, do you want to think about bringing in Deshaun Watson or Aaron Rodgers if he still even wants to play football after this year? So there's definitely a lot of upside so far, but you want to start seeing results this season because that tells you where the rebuild is going to go. If this is going to be a multi-year thing or if next year is a year or even this year you can be competitive and next year you can really start thinking about making a push in the playoffs.
Yeah, this is like, look, I think Hurts has the mentality to be a franchise quarterback. Whether the talent is there for a consistent basis to be a franchise quarterback is another thing. To keep in mind that the 2022 quarterback draft class is not that good. Sam Howell, Spencer Rattler, the kid out of Cincinnati, his name is leaving me right now. That's really it. There's a kid out of Liberty that some people like, but it's not a good draft class for quarterbacks. So this is the wrong year to have all the capital for the draft, needing to find that franchise guy. It would be nice to know that Jalen Hurts can be that guy, or you're willing to go another year to see if he is. If not, however, I think that decision is going to be made this year. To your point, like, they have the draft capital to go and get Deshaun Watson. I think Houston would be one of those teams lining up to take those 3 first-round picks if that's what it's going to take to get Deshaun. I don't think it would take that much, but if it would, you have that ability. Whether the Eagles really want or are a realistic option for Watson is another story for another day. But we will leave it at that, hopefully, and we will get to this in a bit here. Hopefully the Eagles can kind of turn the mentality of talking about the draft, and it's about to be week 5, to this Eagles team is turning around, and they're not out of it quite yet. So let's get right to it, Matt. Eagles, Panthers, they head down to Carolina. Carolina started off the season 3-0 before falling last week to 3-1. This is a Panthers team that has looked serviceable under Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold kind of is what he is at this point. I think he's a serviceable starting quarterback in the NFL, but he's not going to take you to the promised land. This is a very good defense, though, with the Panthers. A lot of matchups to keep an eye on. And honestly, it's going to be really, we'll start on the offensive side of the ball, and then we'll go to the defensive side of the ball later. So let's talk about this Eagles offensive line, because, like I said, Carolina has good defense. Their edge rushers against what this offensive line might look like, we don't really know yet. It's going to be kind of a mystery. Lane Johnson did return to the team. We don't know if he's going to start. Mailata has missed the last 2 games with that sprained knee. Andre Dillard has filled in. Hasn't looked bad, Matt. Dillard has not looked bad at all, but it would be nice to get Mailata back. Mm-hmm. He hasn't participated much in practice. He was limited today. We record on Wednesday. He had that brace on, though. Lane Johnson, if he's not back, you're going to see Jack Driscoll once again, who didn't look bad. I mean, Driscoll didn't look bad to say the least. Yeah, he's not Lane Johnson. And then the inside, losing Sayamalu for the rest of the year, that's gonna sting. Jason Kelsey, as consistent as they come. Brandon Brooks should be back soon. Landon Dickerson has looked okay, not great. But this is an offensive line, especially against the Panthers defensive line, that's very underrated, in my opinion. They have explosive edge rushers and Brian Burns, Hassan Reddick, the Temple product. Reddick in his last 8 games has 12 sacks and 7 forced fumbles. Not exactly the matchup you want to hear with a banged up offensive line. But Jalen Hurts' mobility will help for sure. Burns is a pure speed rusher who really is off to an explosive start. Already has 19.5 sacks in 35 career games. He's just an absolute stud. The Panthers put a lot of young prospect talent into this defense, and it's already showing. This is not going to be the easiest task for this Eagles offense.
It really isn't, especially when you see that Sam Darnold has probably the best supporting cast he's had in his career. So it's definitely a team that is intimidating, especially on both sides of the ball. Not to mention Sam Darnold's leading the league in rushing touchdowns this year, so that'll be an interesting test for this defense. But for the most part, I think that they are a beatable team. I think that they have shown to have flaws in their previous weeks. It's just a matter of if this defense is going to wake up and come to play, and if this offense is going to continue to just try to do what they've been doing. They've had the hot hand. They look good against Kansas City, but you got to run the football. Start getting Miles Sanders going. Get that train moving.
Free Booby. Honestly, this has been ridiculous. They absolutely need to run the ball more, and the link was chanting it. I was losing my voice and losing my breath chanting it so many times. Run the ball. However, that's not the matchup, though, that the Eagles could really exploit. And it drives you nuts, right? Because we want to run the ball. However, there's a clear weakness on this Panthers defense, and that's their corners. J.C. Horn had a great start, looked really good to start the year, but he got hurt the Thursday night football game a couple of weeks ago in Houston, broke his foot. He's going to be out for a while. Then they traded for CJ Henderson from the Jaguars. Dante Jackson is a solid starter on one side, but otherwise corner is a concern for the Panthers. Henderson only had 18 snaps in his debut against Dallas last week. He was targeted once, and Dak went deep for 35 yards and a tutty to Amari Cooper on CJ Henderson. So, I mean, whether it's Henderson, they also have Rashawn Melvin, who's a 32-year-old vet who's kind of floated around here and there. The Eagles should, especially with Devontae Smith looking more and more lethal in this offense and promising. He had a really good game, probably his best game against the Chiefs, over 100 yards, made some great catches, ran some really good routes, was targeted a lot against Dallas. Hurts missed him a lot against the Cowboys. But this is clearly the weakness that the Eagles should exploit. But however, I say that, but it starts with the run game. Start with the run game. Make that defense honor them. If you have Devontae Smith and even Jalen Reagor or Quez Watkins one-on-one with these corners, you're going to beat them. If Hurts can find them, you're going to beat them. So it starts with that run game, and you could definitely exploit the secondary of the Carolina Panthers.
Got to set up the pass with the run. It's as simple as it gets.
I mean, it's as simple as it gets, but here we are, and Sirianni's ran the ball. 1-3, and Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell have split rushing. It sounds silly because like it sounds like one game. Over the past 2 games, Miles Sanders has 9 touches. Kenneth Gainwell has 9 touches. In the past 2 games, they've ran the ball 18 times. That's ridiculous to even.
Some teams run 18 times and a half.
Like, it sounds wrong coming out of my mouth. The Eagles have run the ball 18 times the last 2 weeks. You should run 18 times in the first half this week against Carolina.
You really should. And, I just can't stand to see Miles Sanders, just because you even see after he broke a big run, like you can tell how excited he is. He wants the ball in his hand. And when Sirianni, especially in your first year as head coach, you have such a great safety valve right there that he's just not utilizing. I don't know what he thinks he's doing by outsmarting them. I don't know.
And you have a young quarterback. You don't even see Patrick Mahomes.
Still a rookie.
He practically is still a rookie. I mean, any rookie last year had a not normal rookie season, and it's tough to adjust to the NFL, the normal NFL, when you had that last year. So run the ball, rely on the running game. Any smart quarterback, even Carson Wentz's first year, I mean, Doug tried to run the ball. I mean, did we have any good running backs? No. I mean, Wendell Smallwood was the leading rusher that year. But the point is to emphasize the run game and take some pressure off of Jalen Hurts. Let's go to standout stars on this offense before we head to the defensive side of the ball. If we're looking, obviously, we pointed out how we need to emphasize the run game. Jalen Hurts looked better last week. The offensive line needs to continue to step up, even though they're banged up. We know the clear weakness of this Panthers team, which is the secondary. Is there a certain player that you're looking at that's going to stand out this week and help the Eagles to hopefully win this football game?
I'm trying to think off the top of my head, and I think that hopefully Sirianni wakes up and realizes his mistakes. I'm going to go with Miles Sanders here if Sirianni decides to actually give him the touches. I think he has the ability to really open up this passing game, and if you utilize him in the screen and underneath passes, he can really open up this offense, get Jalen Hurts comfortable early, and opens things up for Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins and Reagor.
Oh, your mouth to God's ears. I hope you're right. Because I think if that's established, my standout star will also be very explosive, and I'm going Devontae Smith. The reason I'm going Devontae Smith is because there's clear weakness on the corner position for the Panthers. Obviously, the defense at first is going to be expecting the Eagles to throw the ball. It is in Carolina, though. The crowd is, it's typically loud in Carolina. Very loyal fans down there. However, this is also a place that I expect a lot of Birds fans to be at. Obviously, Eagles fans travel well no matter where they are, no matter how bad they are. But this is an Eagles team that I think with what the Panthers are going to try to do on the other side of the ball offensively, I think it kind of caters to what the Eagles should do, and that's run the ball. If you could establish the run game with your standout star in Miles Sanders, those play action RPO plays are going to be there, and you're going to have Devontae Smith possibly one-on-one to the likes of CJ Henderson. That is a mouth-watering matchup to me, and if Amari Cooper could do it, Devontae Smith can do it. I'm going to go with Devontae Smith, and I think he's going to go for over 100 yards again, except this time he's also going to have a touchdown.
I'd love to see it. Yeah, definitely a great opportunity for them to really utilize him against a broken secondary. Hopefully, Stephon Gilmore, who they just traded for from the Pats, doesn't suit up all this week.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the elephant in the room.
But like for the most part, this is a very human Carolina Panthers secondary. It's a young secondary, and it's really is a chance for guys like Reagor and Smith to really wake up. Smith you can see him have back-to-back weeks. It can really get him in the rhythm he needs for the rest of the year. Reagor can have that big game that we've been waiting for. Maybe that can help his confidence out and help him finish with a strong season going forward.
Look at the future, though, for the Panthers. If Gilmore gets right and you pair it with J.C. Horn, whew, that's
that Matt Rule knows his defense.
Yeah, that is his specialty. He knows his defense. I think Matt Rule's doing a great job with the Panthers, and that also correlates to the other side of the ball with the Panthers on offense, the Birds on defense. When you're looking at what the Eagles could possibly do and what the Panthers will try to do, and that was a big reason why Sam Darnold came out to such a hot start, is their rushing attack. Now, McCaffrey at this time has practiced on a limited basis. We record on Wednesday. However, the expectation is that Chuba Hubbard will get the start. McCaffrey will miss one more week. We'll see, though. Whether it's McCaffrey or a combination of Chuba Hubbard and Royce Freeman, Jonathan Gannon needs to make some adjustments to a run defense that has given up. And it's hard to believe because for years, the Eagles were always so good against the run, force teams to throw the ball. Although, forcing teams to throw the ball, they always had success because our secondaries have been shit. But so far this year, Matt, they have not given up under 100, which is just baffling to me. Have not given up under 100 yards yet this year. Falcons ran for a 124. Niners ran for 117. Cowboys did whatever they wanted, ran for under 160, and the Chiefs did as well with Clyde Edwards-Helaire leading the way, ran for exactly 200 yards. The Eagles are averaging 4.4 yards per carry given up. They've given up 4 touchdowns already on the ground and have given up over 600 yards at 601 already. I look at it, Matt, and you got to take away the run and force Sam Darnold to get uncomfortable and throw the football more times than this offense would like.
Absolutely. You really want to see Darnold rattled as much as you can and just try to, because it seems like for the most part, Darnold has had good protection this year, and it's probably why he's been playing so well. So if you can disturb him early, if this defensive line can just wake up, if Fletch can have that big game and play to what he is supposed to be playing to, I think this is a very winnable game. I think that this Panthers team, granted their record is what it is, but I think that they are an exploitable team.
Yeah, let's look at, although, it'd be nice for the Eagles to limit Sam Darnold to just throwing the football. He has a very good weapon, and that would be DJ Moore. Because this Eagles secondary, they're playing so much zone. It's really bothering me, actually, when you have guys like Steven Nelson and Darius Slay, that they are playing so much zone and 2 high safety looks. They have not given up many big plays this year. However, they've only given up 6 pass plays of 20 or more yards this year, which is second best in the NFL. However, that's great, but teams are torching this team in the intermediate routes and the short part of the field. Dak and Patrick Mahomes the past 2 weeks have done whatever they've wanted to their underneath guys, Tyreek Hill, CD Lamb, and Dalton Schultz did whatever he wanted in the intermediate routes against the Eagles on Monday night a couple weeks ago. They have a guy, DJ Moore, in Carolina. He's not talked about enough, but he's probably having a top 3 season for a wide receiver this year.
Quite possibly.
he has speed. He's fearless over the middle. He's very dangerous after the catch, and he lines up all over formation. In his last 2 games, he has 16 catches, Matt, for 239 yards, 2 tutties, mainly working the intermediate routes. And that's why I wanted to bring this up for Sam Darnold. The intermediate routes, he hasn't ran a deep route. He has 8 receptions and 113 yards last week, all intermediate routes. And then again in week 3, 8 receptions for 126 yards, all intermediate routes. He doesn't go deep, but he's so good after the catch that they just get the ball in his hands. The Eagles can't afford to have DJ Moore go off like Tyreek Hill did in week 4. And with the corners that this team has, it's hard to believe that we're having this conversation. But when Tyreek Hill goes off for 3 tutties and damn near 200 yards receiving, DJ Moore is a guy that concerns you a lot.
Definitely. Not to mention Robbie Anderson right to this other side with the deep routes. And
yeah.
It's a very dangerous duo that they have there. So it's going to be a big test here for Darius Slay and Steven Nelson to see if one of them can make that big player force a turnover.
And let's hope that this defense can get some. Look, if you limit the run game and force Darnold to hold on to the football, you have the pass rush to get there. Josh Sweat has been good. Hargrave has been good. Fletcher Cox needs to be better. That's plain and simple. I don't have faith that he will be better this week, but he kind of shied away from ownership. More blamed his role in the defense, which is not exactly what I want to hear from who's supposed to be the leader of this defense. Derek Barnett's been a goddamn disaster. Ryan Kerrigan, I don't know if he, is actually in an Eagles uniform. Did they pick up a guy off the streets and put a Kerrigan jersey on him? Because he's been non-existent. The linebackers, Matt Singleton's been okay, but Wilson's been horrible. Jannard Avery, whenever he is on the field, hasn't been great. This is a defense, though, that needs to get to the quarterback because Sam Darnold's the type of quarterback, if you could get to him, you can rattle him and force a lot of mistakes.
Absolutely. So this defense needs to just have their wake up. Like it's what I kept saying today, but it's the truth. They just need to wake up and get the job done. Especially considering when Gannon preaches playing with passion and energy and wanting to create turnovers. We haven't seen any of that. So It's time for them to wake up and show us that.
Yeah, Sam Darnold is on pace to shatter his personal record. He's completed 67.8 of his passes for 1,189 yards, has 5 touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns. So he's been using his legs a little more. This is a team that has to be aware of the comfortability of Sam Darnold in their offense. They need to get him rattled, and they need to get some turnovers. We've had 2 this season. It needs to be more than 2. Let's look at our standout stars before we head to our predictions on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, we talked about some of the big keys for this defense. Who's going to be leading the charge?
I'm going to go with Josh Sweat for this one. I feel like he's kind of getting himself on the right track the last couple of weeks, and I think that this is his chance to really break out and have a big performance. So I'm hoping to see a couple sacks from him today or, next week.
I'm going to look at, and it's kind of an interesting choice because I don't know how much he's going to be on DJ Moore, but I'm looking at Avonte Maddox. And the reason I look at Avonte Maddox is because of the intermediate routes, how much they put him all over the formation. DJ Moore, a lot of motion. He's been even used out of the backfield this year. I expect Slay to be on Robbie Anderson more so than DJ Moore, and Steven Nelson to be on whoever's on the other side. So if DJ Moore is inside, I expect to see Avonte Maddox there. And Avonte's been quiet this year because he's been having a good year. I expect Avonte to kind of shadow him whenever he is in the slot this week. And on those intermediate routes, Maddox has to wrap up and play well. If he does and takes away one of their better playmakers with the ball in his hands, the Eagles defense should be able to take the Panthers out of what they want to do and hopefully force them into some mistakes.
Yeah, I've always liked Avonte Maddox, especially in the slot. So it'll be really great to see if that can happen.
All right, let's go to predictions. Matt, I'll let you go first. I assume we both would have picked the Eagles to lose last week, so I'm going to give us a 2-2 record because we both picked the Eagles to beat the Cowboys, and that did not happen. So let's go with this week. Down in Carolina, the Eagles open up as 3.5-point underdogs for Sunday's matchup, which kicks off at 1 p.m. Eastern. Eagles, Panthers, who do you got?
Given the 1-3 start, I do still think the Eagles can win this. I think I am going to go with the Eagles. I think that this just sounds like and feels like a bounce back performance for them. I feel like Sirianni now has about a month under his belt, and he can see what he's done right and what he hasn't done right. And I think it starts with him just running the ball more. So, even if the running game isn't a slam dunk, if he just gives Miles Sanders 10, 15 guaranteed touches and allows the offense to open up and do what they do, control the clock better, possess the ball longer, give their defense more time to settle down between possessions. I think that this is an Eagles team that can beat Carolina. I don't know if it'll be the prettiest victory, but I think the Eagles can win by a score of 21 to, I'll say 17.
I'll take a Birds win. I don't care how it looks. Honestly, just give me a win. I kind of agree with you in the sense that this is a 1-3 team. They're sensing the heat after 3 straight losses. This is an offense that I have seen good things from outside of the lack of running the ball. I do think Sirianni is going to go back to what worked, especially in week 1 against the Falcons. They ran the ball well against the Falcons, and then all of a sudden they didn't do it. I think Sirianni is going to go back to that, get the ball out of Hurts' hands quick, get him in a rhythm that helped him against the Chiefs last week. The offense wasn't the issue. It was the defense. I think what Sam Darnold and the Panthers offense does kind of caters to what the Eagles are looking for in a bounce back week. I don't see how, and to me, the Panthers are kind of a fake 3-1. Like 2 of their 3 wins are against the Jets and the Texans. And so I don't really know how good of a Panthers team this really is. I think the Eagles are going to win this game as well. I think they're going to put a couple more points on the board than you. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't, but the Eagles are finding ways to put points up on the board. I'm going to go Birds 31, Panthers 17 as well. I think this is going to be one of those wins that gets the Eagles back on track before they head out to Vegas next week, hopefully to bring back their record of 3-3. But we have to start with this week. Hopefully they can reel it back in, get back to 2-3.
We'd love to see it. I don't know if it's a guarantee to put up 31 points, but I can see them doing it. I mean, Hurts is coming off a really good game. I still feel like he wants to show that he can be a quarterback for a winning team, so I'm sure he'll definitely be hungry. But I would love to see it.
All right. We have to talk about it because we obviously didn't talk about it last week. We didn't know. Going in what the Phillies would look like, and they had it. They had it in their hands. They were 2.5 games back going down to Atlanta for a 3-game series before ending the season in Miami. And, of course, they proceeded to get swept by Atlanta, and their season came to a miserable end. Once again, another year, another fail with a big fat PH. This has been the same story, same song that we've heard for years now. They entered the 2021 season with one simple goal: to make the playoffs, and it's been since Roy Halladay shredded his shoulder and lower back, gutting out cutters, and Ryan Howard blowing out his Achilles 10 years ago to the month. The Phillies were eliminated, like I said, from the Atlanta Braves, sweeping them. And, it hurts a little more this year because this is a team that I think has the MVP favorite in Bryce Harper, has a Cy Young candidate in Zach Wheeler, and yet you still couldn't make the playoffs. They controlled their own destiny with 2 months to go. After winning 8 in a row, they moved into first place. They fell behind quickly in early August and promptly drove their season into a tree, losing 11 of 15 ball games. It's just not what you wanted to see. Joe Girardi has failed to get consistency out of this team, but there's a lot of holes in a lot of places. It starts with the bullpen. It starts with the starting rotation. It starts with the left side of the infield. It starts with the left side of the outfield. It starts with the health of Rhys Hoskins. It starts with the consistency of this baseball team. It starts with accountability. You name it, it probably applies to this Phillies team. This is a big big winter ahead for Dave Dombrowski and company.
It is. They really need to bring in some, I don't want to say like big name guys, but you need you need to fill out the rest of your lineup. You got Bryce Harper. You have Reese Hoskins when he's healthy, how effective he's been. Hopefully, if JT Realmuto can do pretty much any better than what this last season was, he was hot and cold a lot. So they have some pieces there, but you're looking for them to add that one or two big other names, whether it's a Nick Castellanos who's opting out of his deal, whether it's looking at Starling Marte, depending on if he resigns with Oakland or not. So they need to go out and get that one more big name to fill out the lineup, and then just hope that guys like Adam Hazley can develop into what they once were. Whether it's Rafael Marchand.
Good one.
I still have faith in Adam Hazley. I still do.
I think he's a bum. I can't stand
still,
him.
It is very debatable, but you need to start looking within your organization, look at what few promising prospects you have right now, such as Rafael Marchand or other guys. I can't even think of other notable Phillies prospects right now.
Stott.
It's on me.
Stott
might be the one guy who's a little bit untouchable for me. I think he has a shot to make the roster next year. Hopefully, anything's better than what Didi was towards the strand of the end of the year. So there are some pieces there, but like you said, this is a very, very important winter to stress it as much as he can.
Yeah, and I think this was kind of one of those things, like just looking at the Phillies and getting real with it. They were finally putting that 5-man starting rotation together that we had talked about at the deadline that looked like, hey, if they got into the playoffs, this could be promising. Kyle Gibson, Ranger Suarez coming along, then Zach Eflin went down. And the Matt Moore acquisition, the Chase Anderson acquisition, it's amazing they thought that could work. It didn't. Vince Velasquez, goodbye, farewell, Avizain forever. The organization for well more than a decade has not only failed to draft and develop enough impact pitching, but enough pitching depth in general, capable of helping a team like this one that faced such a pitching shortage in a playoff race. Like, it's almost a joke that down the stretch, every fifth day was a bullpen game for a team fighting for a playoff spot. That should not be the case. Thank God the organization had a feather in its cap in Suarez, or the shortage could have been even worse. And I think this team would have been gone way farther. Maybe second year scouting director Brian Barber, and now new farm director Preston Mattingly, who I've heard nothing but good things about, can kind of help fix the talent deficit. Time will tell, but Dombrowski, who has only been here for 10 months, knows what the hell he's doing. I mean, we've seen it in multiple cities. He deserves the benefit of the doubt to get this going. It wasn't going to be, he kind of came late in the ball game too last year. Like, this team kind of sat on Clentac for a while before making a decision. So Dombrowski came in late in the game. But it was just a year ago, Matt, that, we heard Middleton call out the Phillies organization, both currently and in the past, for its inability to draft and develop enough talent. You could go out and get the Bryce Harper and Zach Wheelers of the world, but you also have to produce your own guys. You're not going to win baseball games that way. I'm kind of looking at this team, and isn't it, like, in your head, a little bit remarkable that this Phillies team lasted so long at the state that they were in? You got to credit Bryce Harper for that, first and foremost, but you lost Reese Hoskins. Maybe that will put a little more appreciation to Hoskins' name, seeing how much they struggled without him, especially in the lineup. But Harper cannot overcome poor defense, a poor bullpen, a poor starting rotation. The Phillies ranked 29th in the majors at minus 49 defensive runs saved. Only the Tigers were worse. A year after recording the worst bullpen ERA in the history of the game, the Phils tied a major league record with 34 blown saves.
That's the most crazy stat to me. That's by far the most crazy, because you figure
think about 34 wins.
If they don't blow half of those, they don't blow a quarter of those during the playoffs. It's insane.
That directly led to 13 losses. With 3 games left, when you look at the 3 games left, just the difference of those 13 games is huge to me. Then there's the shortcomings, right? Like, everybody thought the Phils had a top 3 in their starting rotation that could win any series in October. And then Aaron Nola came in, right? Like, has such a disappointing year for Aaron Nola. Like, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but we've seen regression now ever since that Cy Young finalist season. Made a ton of mistakes over the heart of the plate, got hurt for them constantly, allowed 83 hits with 2 strikes on a hitter. That was the most in all of baseball, Matt. Like, this is Aaron Nola we're talking about, the supposed ace of this team. Wheeler obviously became the ace of the team, but this is not Aaron Nola. He's a location guy. So to see him get hurt so much over the plate, losing that control of his pitches because he was leaving it over the plate, he consistently blamed the mechanical flaw in his delivery for his struggles, which I'm trying to figure out what Caleb Cotham did with him to get him better, because he's looked worse. I mean, how did you fix mechanical issues if that's what he's still preaching? Just, this is a team that, man, has a lot of question marks for sure.
It really is baffling to see where Nola's at after, just a couple years ago, he was a Cy Young candidate. I think he finished 3rd in voting that year. So ideally, you get anything better from him than what was this year. But for the most part, I mean, I don't see any reason why Wheeler won't be starting opening day next year.
You'd have to think so, that Wheeler will be the 2022 opening day starter, and a big offseason ahead, like we said, for Dave Dombrowski. You need some more production out of the center field spot. I don't think there's any confidence. I mean, I know there are some people, and I understand it, that still want to believe in Adam Hazley, but you need more production than what you got this year out of the center field position. And that's something that they're obviously going to explore outside of the organization. What is Alec Bohm? Right? What is Alec Bohm? We thought we had a surefire third baseman. He had a terrible year. Do you move him to first? Does the National League develop the DH? Do you move Rhys Hoskins to DH and keep him off the field entirely? What do you do at shortstop? You have Didi, who's still under contract for another year, and it was horrible. Absolutely horrible. And then that opens up third base as well. Like, there are so many questions to be answered. It honestly makes my head hurt.
It really does. And, first for Alec Bohm, you're probably not going to see him moved unless we do see a DH added to the NL, because you're not going to put Rhys Hoskins back in left field. Nope. And Alec Bohm has not shown the ability to be a good defender at the third base position. He's even made some errors when he was at first base. So definitely a lot of question marks. You got to look at the free agent market too. Is Chris Bryant going to re-sign with the Giants? I mean, I could very well see him doing it, but he still might want to play with Harper, even go back to Chicago. So it's a situation that we can't properly read out until we cross the bridge as it's happening. So I'd say buckle up. I would just say buckle up.
Yeah, and do keep an eye on, like, you could trade Didi to a team that'll eat that contract and get, a bucket of baseballs for it. I'm not really worried about that. I'd be surprised if Didi is on the team next year. Keep an eye on the shortstop market. You have Baez there. You have Trevor Story. You have Seager, who are all set to be free agents. So we will see what happens there. I trust Dave Dombrowski. He's done it in multiple cities. He's done it in Detroit. He's done it in Boston. He's put a World Series champion team on the field before. There's no reason he can't do it here. That'll put the Phillies talk to bed for a while. I'm sure over the next couple of weeks, we will hear more news from them. We will start talking more Sixers and Flyers as the seasons begin next week, and the week following that for the Sixers. Flyers start next week. Sixers, I believe, start the week after that. Obviously, we still have the Ben Simmons dilemma to get through. As Brian Windhorst would like to put it, the declaration of war. Although I'd like to second that and say the minute Ben Simmons said he wasn't showing up, that was the declaration of war. But sure, blame the Sixers organization. That's fine. Whatever. But it's going to be a bumpy start to the Sixers season.
Just an absolute roller coaster. That's the only way I can describe it at this point. I mean, I think Stephen A. Smith really hit the nail on the head. If you watch him talk about Ben Simmons, talking about how there's, you're a jump shot away from being great. There's no better city to play in Philadelphia. But I still can't believe that he said now it went from, he's going to work on his game to now he doesn't want to play in front of the fans. Now he doesn't want to play with Joel Embiid. Can you imagine saying, I can't play with one of the best centers in the league doesn't fit my playing style. There's just no way I can play with them. Now, you can argue they're not the perfect pairing, as Stephen A. also said, but it's like, dude, instead of trying to improve your game, you're going to say one of the best centers in the game is one of the causes to you not being at your best.
And now the most recent reports is, the Sixer, and this is the most wild excuse. I mean, credit to Ben for coming up with this. I don't know what goes on in his head. The excuse that the Sixers became a contender too quick.
I didn't hear that one. When was that?
Yeah, that came out today. Like Ben Simmons is like referring to, the pressure of being in Philadelphia, the Sixers becoming a contender too quickly, and rushing to become a contender. Like what?
That's a new one.
What?
That's a new one. How do you rush to become a contender? That's a good thing.
Look, if that's your mentality, dude, Philly is not for you. You could go to Cleveland or Minnesota. You don't have to worry about being a contender for the rest of your career.
That's absolutely nuts.
And good on Joel Embiid to say, it's kind of disrespectful to show up, right? Or to not show up and say you're not going to show up and shy away from, the teammates that want to meet you. To say that it's disrespectful, because you look at what the Sixers have done. They've done nothing but cater, and Joel is right, done nothing but cater to what Ben Simmons does on the floor, how they constructed this roster. It's why Jimmy Butler is no longer a Sixer. Mm-hmm. It's why they brought certain shooters to come in and not another true point guard, because they were trying to cater to what Ben Simmons does, had the ball in his hands and distribute to the playmakers. That's what Ben Simmons does. And to Stephen A's point, he's a jump shot away from being one of the greatest players in the league, if not the best player in the league. It's frustrating. He will never play for the Sixers again, and I cannot wait for him to leave. But it's one of those things. This is one of the most bizarre, like this whole situation with Ben Simmons said to Donovan McNabb and T.O., hold my beer. This has been the most bizarre sequence of events that I could remember from a trade request in honestly quite some time.
Yeah, because it's I think because when you look at the McNabb and T.O. situation, like that happened a lot more quickly. Like with Ben Simmons, like this is now year 5 where we've been supporting him, but we're just trying to preach to him, get that jump shot, get that free throw. And it's just so mind-baffling to now say he doesn't want to play for the fans when, I keep thinking back to the video of that one guy doing the free throw motion at the game, like trying to coach him up.
This fan base did nothing but support Ben Simmons. Do you know how many conversations I've had with people that are not Sixers fans, and now I look like an idiot, but defended Ben Simmons to my grave, saying he will figure it out. I promise you, Ben Simmons will figure it out and be great. Yeah, no, it didn't happen. He got worse. Like if you pull up highlights from his rookie season,
he was worse. He was.
He was making jumpers. Ben Simmons made jumpers his rookie year under Brett Brown, and now all of a sudden he bricks everything known to man. It's so frustrating to watch. But I'm ready for this whole circus to come to an end, because it's a very dark cloud hanging over the players that actually want to be there, the players that want to move forward to the season, and especially with the Nets, as silly as it sounds, with the Nets and the not having Kyrie for pretty much the entire season at this point, unless he goes and gets vaccinated, because New York City mandates are forcing their players really require their players to be vaccinated, and most of the cities do as well. So Nets are going to be without Kyrie. The Bucks are, defending champions, but they're beatable in my opinion. You look at the Sixers, and this is a team that they're trying to compete with those teams, and you don't even know who's going to be on the opening day roster. What are you going to get in return for Ben Simmons? What is going to happen with Ben Simmons? It's just frustrating, and it needs to end. But yet again, Daryl Morey cannot bow down to Ben Simmons. He has to hold his ground and prove that the Sixers organization is not going to get bullied by a quote-unquote superstar with a lot of money just because he wants out. The Sixers have to hold their ground, and that in its own, like, doing the right thing is going to be the frustrating part about this.
It really is, and it's going to be a process that quite possibly drags on to a good portion of the season, and the Sixers might have to pay a price because of it. You look at the James Harden situation, how that can affect the locker room, how it can just affect the overall team chemistry. It creates an uncomfortable work environment for these guys, and it's not an issue that's going to be resolved overnight, whether you like it or not. So Daryl Morey's just going to have to do some magic and just hope that you can get him to, like almost as a screw you. I hope we send him to just one of the most down in the dumps teams you can find, get their 1 star, and just leave them there to rot at this point.
I'm good with sending for them. Send them to Cleveland or Minnesota at this point. I honestly, good run. I mean, those are 2 teams that are clearly in on Ben. We'll see what happens. I can tell you this: Joel Embiid and all the other players on this roster are kind of sick of going to their press conferences and answering questions about Ben Simmons. Like, dude's not here. Let's just move on. We will keep you updated if anything comes across the board with Ben Simmons. Keep it locked into my Twitter account at ZBryce21, Matt's Twitter account at Matt__Minton, and of course the Made for Philly account at Made for Philly. This was another good week. Hopefully the Eagles go and right the ship, right all the wrongs, and beat Carolina down in Charlotte and get to 2-3. Hopefully the Sixers will have some more clarity for next week's episode as the season approaches, and we'll talk some Flyers as well with the season getting underway there. Preseason underway for the Flyers right now. They are dwindling down their roster. But outside of that, keep it locked into our Twitter accounts. As I said earlier, this was Made for Philly. For Matt Minton, I'm Bryce Zielinski. We are presented by Godzilla Media. Fly, Eagles, fly. Trust the process. Stay safe out there. We will catch you next week.
Go Birds.